Can you hear us okay, Rolf?
Hi, Paul. Yes, I can hear you now.
Oh, you're looking great.
I'm on the beach and I'm looking great.
I had a feeling you would be on the beach or out on a small boat or something, Rolf. You're looking great. So welcome to this Global Biodiversity Festival. I do have to say it's running great, and we know we can't substitute these big, glorious conferences that we all attend, which are our waypoints, aren't they? They really are.
Yes, exactly.
Lighthouses in a storm. Where do we go next? And normally that's where you and I are together, of course. But in this instance, we're together virtually. But it's feeling good, Rolf. We're never going to replace those big ones, but this does feel good. Well, if you're ready, Rolf, I'm going to make an introduction. We're running a little bit late because we had a technical glitch there, but so I'll spare the long introduction, except that Rolph Payet is my Seychelles brother. He's the Secretariat for the UN Basel, Rotterdam, Stockholm Conventions, for which I'm a very proud ambassador, mostly focused on plastics. So it's a terrific experience to introduce my dear friend, Rolf. And Rolf, over to you, sir.
Hi, thank you very much, Paul. And it's great to meet with you here on my virtual beach in the Seychelles. So allow me to share the screen with you here. So this is the first time I'm doing this. So let me get this. Share. Okay, there we go. Is that working? Is that working? Yes. Okay. Thanks, Paul. So today I'm going to talk to you about the circle of life. Now we've seen this wonderful Disney movie about the Lion King and how they take care of each other and how it is important out in the wild to really look after each other, and also how the whole ecosystems, animals, species, plants really work together. So today I want to talk a little bit about the circle of life and how it relates to us as individual inhabitants of this planet. Now, why am I talking about the circle of life? Because I come from one of the smallest islands in the world, and that is in the island of the Seychelles. And if you look here at the bottom, with my cursor here, and this is where the Seychelles is. We heard about Madagascar this morning. There was a nice, beautiful talk about Madagascar. So Seychelles is just north of Madagascar, and here you have the continent of Africa. And the beauty of the Seychelles is that if you stand even on the highest mountain in the Seychelles, it's so small that you see the ocean, which means that if you were to throw a rock down there, it would take absolutely seconds for that rock to actually literally fall into the sea, which means that if somebody does something wrong with the forests, with the ecosystems up in the mountains, you actually see the impact in the oceans. And this is how closely, how close I grew up with the environment in the Seychelles, seeing how the impacts of humans have on our coastal environment, but also on the marine environment. I have one biodiversity success story I wanted to share with you this evening, but I will let you research it. So I've put the keywords here. It's a project that I started with many partners, both international and locally, in 2010. And in March of this year, the president of the Seychelles signed in a certain percentage of its EEZ as a marine protected area. Now, this is a real big success, not only for Seychelles, but also for the planet, because Seychelles is one of the most important biodiversity regions of this planet, entertaining millions of seabirds, millions of, hundreds of thousands of sea turtles, whales, whatever species you can mention, which has a connection to land and the oceans. You have those species here. But I will let you research a little bit more about my country and a bit more about the EEZ, or the protected area within the exclusive economic zone of the Seychelles. But I now want to go back to my topic of today, which is, I think, an interesting one that we don't give a lot of attention to. Probably you've never been in a biology class. Probably you don't remember when you last did a biology class. Maybe you were watching out of the window, but it is so important. And I want to refresh you, for those of you who've never talked about the circle of life, but also for others who've never heard about it before. So what is a life cycle? Does everything have life cycle? Do we have life cycle in products that we use in our everyday life? Is there, what will life be without cycles? And of course, where does your life fit within that circle of life? This is what I want to talk to you about today. So let's start with a very simple life cycle, which you probably seen before. Sorry, I missed one here. This is a very simple one. And my kids, when I'm wandering around the gardens, they point out to caterpillars, they point out to butterflies, and I explain to them the whole concept of how the butterfly life cycle is so unique and so what do you call it, fascinating, that one needs sometimes to reflect on how nature has evolved over time to bring us what we have today. So we start with the eggs of the butterfly, then we go into the larvae of the butterfly, and then we go into what we call the pupa or the chrysalis of the butterfly, and then that gives us the butterfly. And the butterfly becomes a mature butterfly and then lays eggs, and the cycle carries on. Now, if we break this cycle, for example, we steal all the eggs or we eat all the caterpillars, I'm just doing an illustration here, or we kill all the butterflies because we use extreme pesticides, what will happen? The whole cycle will break down, which means that after a few years, there will be no butterflies. And can you imagine the seriousness of this? Now, let's move on. There's a different kind of life cycle as well. These are life cycles that are different animals or different organisms, plants, animals, fungi, and whatnot, that depend upon each other. And here is a very simple one where we look at this beautiful eagle who actually needs to prey and hunt for mice, squirrels, rabbits, and other small mammals for food. An eagle doesn't eat plants. They don't eat sunflower. They don't eat grass. They eat small mammals. And the small mammals need grass for them to grow. And if there's no grass, then these small mammals cannot grow. So again, and when the eagle dies and the mammals die and everything dies, we need what we call decomposers. I was having a conversation with my family at dinner this week, at dinner, right? And we were talking about bugs, earthworms, and all these things. Now, they are so important. Yes, we go like this when we talk about bugs and whatever, but they are so important for the whole thing of nature. Nature cannot work without the bugs because they are the ones that break down the carcasses of dead animals. They are the ones that break down the trees that fall down. They break down into compost and the soil and provide richness to the soil. So you can just imagine. So if we remove the eagle, what happens? If we remove the decomposers, what happens? If we kill all the rabbits, what happens? If we don't have any grass or any trees, for that matter, what will happen to the whole cycle? The whole thing will just collapse. And that's why it's so important to understand the concept of the circle of life. And here is also a little drawing here about, sorry, I've got a little bit of an allergy the last few days, of earthworms and animals and microbes in the soil and why they are so important. And when we put too much fertilizer, too much pesticides in the soil, it actually kills those natural organisms, the earthworms, the microbes, and it stops them from actually naturally fertilizing the soil. So this is what we have been doing to our planet by overconsumption, over intensification of agriculture, for example. And the story doesn't end there. Let's move on. I'm sorry, what am I doing here? Okay. Now, this is a topic that everybody talks about today. Climate change. Yes, everybody says climate change this, climate change that, but do we really understand why we have climate change today? Let's look at this little picture here. We have here the trees that produce oxygen because they use carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. And we have the animals and the humans here who breathe out carbon dioxide, which is also now photosynthesized by the plants. But then over the last 200 years, we've added industry to the whole mix, to the whole cycle. And now the industries are producing carbon dioxide when we switch on the lights, when we turn on our cars, when we buy manufactured products. All these have resulted in the production of gases, especially carbon dioxide, into our atmosphere. And when we produce too much of it, what happens? It heats up, it creates a layer of gas in our planet, and it heats up and our planet heats up. And as a consequence, this whole cycle now becomes charged, loaded, which means that the plants who are naturally taking carbon dioxide from our atmosphere, there's too much carbon dioxide, they can't take it anymore. So what happens is the carbon dioxide remains in our atmosphere, it overloads our atmosphere, and we start overheating. And this was causing climate change. And obviously, if you come from an island like mine, you would be worried about climate change because the heating of the planet is actually causing the ice on Greenland, for example, in Antarctica, for example, to melt, and this is causing sea level rise. And as a result of the melting of the ice, which lets fresh water into the oceans, it affects the circulation of the oceans and a lot of other problems. We also have carbon dioxide, which is too much now in the atmosphere, dissolving in the seawater, which is actually causing acidification of the seawater, which then leading to impacts on corals, for example. Coral reefs now are breaking down. Mollusks, their shells are becoming softer because of acidification of the ocean. Again, I'm trying to explain how everything is connected on our planet and how we as humans, when we try to play around with our planet and how this affects the whole system. So let's go on here. So what did we learn in the first half? In the first half of my presentation, we learned that most species, we took the caterpillar and the butterfly, have some form of individual life cycle where they are born, grow, develop, and then they die. And if we interfere with this, we can actually lead to the extinction of these species. And today, the rate of extinctions of species is at its highest because we keep on cutting down forests for mining, to look for metals, to make new products like mobile phones and whatever, but also for agriculture because the demand for food is increasing every day. So instead of investing in sustainable farming, we are destroying primary forest to create more land and we are interrupting in the life cycle of these individual fish species. The second thing we learned, which is important, is that many species work together to form what we call an ecological cycle. And in this ecological cycle, some are predators, consumers. We have the grazers, for example, the rabbits we saw, the cows are grazers. And then we have the producers, and then we have the decomposers. And thirdly, our planet also have cycles. The famous one, which everybody knows, I think this everybody learns at school, is the water cycle. The water evaporates, it cools down and forms the clouds, and then when the clouds get too heavy, they fall down and we get rain. And without rain, you know what the problems that we will have. So without the water cycle, life would be practically impossible on this planet. But if we interrupt the water cycle by destroying forests, water catchments, and all this, then of course we will get serious water problems. And the same thing as I explained with carbon dioxide cycle is the problem we are in right now with climate change. So, excuse me. So there's a lot of science behind this, obviously, but I'm just trying to share with you that cycles are very important and they play a very important role in enabling us humans to live on this planet, but also all the animals, all the species, the plants to live happily on this planet. But there are other types of cycles. And here I come to cycles that we've created. And I give you here a life cycle of an aluminum can, where we can drink soft drinks like Coca-Cola, Sprite, and all this. And this is the life cycle of an aluminum can. And if you go through with me, you can see that an aluminum can, the aluminum is extracted from the earth as bauxite. And here we dig it up. Then we melt it, we separate it through a chemical process. And then it goes through a chemical process until it becomes aluminum. And all this is using energy, right? We are putting emissions into the atmosphere. And then we go into can manufacturing, and then we have beverage cans. And then the companies take it and they put nice labels on it, and they put a lot of sugar and fizzy drinks and carbonated things. And then we go to the shop, we buy it, and then some of us who are responsible send these cans for recycling. Some of us who are not responsible just dump this can anywhere and everywhere we can. And what happens is, if we were to send to recycling, this is what happens. It gets sorted, it gets shredded, it gets melted again, and then it becomes a can. And we can carry on with this nice cycle if we get it right. But of course, humans are not disciplined organisms. They are not like bees who wake up every morning and their objective is to go to a flower, get the nectar, pollinize the flower, then get back to the hives. A normal human being, when they wake up in the morning, they are thinking over thousands of things that they want to do. Have a coffee, get to work, run around, do this. And the least thing on their mind is taking care of the planet. And I'm hoping tonight that I will help you to add this to your list of things that you need to do every day, is how you, from your armchair, take care of the planet. And that, for me, is a very important thing. So what happens then with those aluminum cans that are not recycled? This is what happens to it. You can see here on a beach, just like a beach in the Seychelles, for example, on an island or on a coastline. And those cans then end up in the sea. And here you have one in the sea, hundreds of cans. And here we have these beautiful turtles. We've heard so many. We heard Carl Lundin from IUCN earlier today talk about the sea turtles and the conservation work we've been doing in the Seychelles with the sea turtles. This poor animal here will not enjoy the Coke. He will enjoy the can. But do you think he will enjoy it? I don't think so. And you all know what will happen consequently. We move on to another cycle. Can you guess this cycle? Do you know about this cycle? I think you're all nodding your head. I think you know what this cycle is all about. This is a cycle for plastics. So here we have the oil, which is used to produce each bottle right on top here. So the plastics come from oil, and we fractionate it in a distillation column. The proper hydrocarbons for production of plastics comes off the manufacturing plant, and it is converted into pellets. And in this case, it's polyethylene pellets, PET pellets. And these PET pellets are then put into molds, and with heat, they expand, and you have your PET bottle. And with the PET bottle, it goes through a manufacturing line, similar to the aluminum can, and it is filled up with your favorite drink, Coca-Cola, water, fizzy drink, Sprite, these are the famous ones anyway. And they go off the manufacturing line, they are transported, and all this is also generating a lot of carbon dioxide. And don't forget about this. It's being transported and then distributed to all the supermarkets. And here, my wife is going to purchase those. And after the kids have finished drinking the iced tea, Coca-Cola, and Sprite, did you know that only, in this case, 23% is recycled? And in most countries, only 1% of this bottle is recycled. And that's the most. So the rest, where does the rest go? The rest of this plastic ends up into the landfills, and most go into the oceans. And this is the problem with this cycle here that we have before us. The problem we have with this cycle is that we have an eagle, maybe has a lifetime of some 30 years, maybe. Some types of eagles, or a rabbit will have a lifetime of 12 years, a tortoise maybe 150 years, a human 80 to 90 years. So when we are done, we are decomposed and we return back to nature, right? But can you imagine a plastic bottle can last 450 years on our planet? An aluminum can that we looked at, right? Just let me look for it here. If you can find it first, shout. 200 years, an aluminum can. A cigarette butt, 1 to 5 years. A plastic bag, 10 to 20 years. Okay, these are all the things that we're now finding in our ocean, just because we're not understanding the concept of the cycle. So if we were to pick up and ensure that we can recycle some of these products, what will happen? We will be able to turn everything around, just like nature is turning everything around. So we need to take that step back and see how we can do this. This is my favorite sea turtle, as you can see. He's entangled in plastics. And probably if you were to check, use one of these video thing is that you put in your throat to check whether you are sick or not. We were to put down into his throat, we will find that there are bits and pieces of plastics. And in fact, this is a bird that died, and you can see the amount of plastic in the gut of that bird. Sorry to share with you a shocking photo, but this is the reality here. And I challenge everyone this evening or this morning to go and find me a bird who doesn't have a piece of plastic in their gut. You will be shocked. I think the millions of birds that we have flying around our planet today all have plastics in their gut. This is the extent, guys and ladies, obviously, and children, of our impact on this planet. This is the evidence that we've been interfering with the circle of life, with the circle that keeps us alive, that keeps us safe, that provides us food, that provides us everything that we need to live. Now, I'm going to show you something quite shocking. I cannot explain this, so I've loaded the YouTube video, which has been posted by the university. And they put some little bits of plastic, which currently we find in our oceans. They are called microplastics. And they showed how this plankton absorbed this plastic. And I wanted to share with you this 1-minute video. So here we are. So as you can see, we are now surfing under the sea, looking for this invasive plankton. Sharks are hovering close by, but no fear, no fear. The worst is ahead of us. It's a plastic bag, not a shark. And here we have the plankton. And here we have the little bits of microplastic here. You see, these are the color are the microplastics. So the microplastics are now in the water. And as you can see, inside the body of the plankton, there is no plastic. But then he gets hungry, right? He's hungry. And he starts to feed. And let's see what happens. And you see, this is the plastic inside the body. See, the plastic is going inside the body of that plankton. And this, you can see it flowing in. Look, it's flowing in into the gut of that plankton. Look at that. Look at that, guys. Look at the little bits of plastic. This is what we've done to our planet. These little bits of plastics is going into the gut of this plankton. And you know what's going to happen next? The small fish is going to eat this plankton. The bigger fish is going to eat this plankton. And then we're going to eat the bigger fish. So let's see that. What happened here? Okay. So this is what happens. So this is the plankton, zooplankton, phytoplankton. Then it's eaten by the fish larvae and the jellyfish. Again, we see our cycle, right? And then they are eaten by seabirds, sea mammals, and the fish that we have on our plate. This is the challenge we have before us, guys. How do we stop this plastic from getting into our food? We have to do something about it. So what have we learned then? This is the second part of what we've learned this evening, is plankton are part of the ecological cycle. So we cannot take this away. It's part of the cycle. Without plankton, there will be no fish. There will be no seabirds. There will be no sea mammals. And without sea mammals, there will be no plankton because they're all part of the cycle. Now, can you imagine a microplastic that takes several hundred years to degrade has now entered into an ecological cycle? What will happen to that plastic? It will carry on going around in this cycle for as long as it can stay in that cycle, and including into us, human beings. So, do you fancy eating some plastic for dinner? I don't think so. So, this is my last slide. I'm going to teach you today to be an armchair ecologist. You've heard from all my friends and colleagues from Madagascar, Indonesia, Brazil, how they are conserving species. Maybe you think this is not my thing. I cannot go out there. I cannot wear, waterproof shoes and take vaccines and go into the forest. And I don't know. I'm not a good climber. I'm not a good swimmer. I'm not a diver. I prefer my armchair. but there are things that you can do from your armchair. And there are 4 things I've suggested that you can start doing today. Today, if you're not doing it already, reduce and eliminate the use of single-use plastics. We didn't have single-use plastics 30, 40 years ago. I remember growing up and going to the shop with a bag, getting the stuff that my mom sent me to shop to buy, and coming back with those things. I'm still alive today. I'm still healthy. Not using plastics did not kill me or affect me in any way. So we can live without single-use plastics. And let's start today without single-use plastics. And this is the largest and most important impact plastics are having on the environment. Secondly, ensure that the plastic you are putting in the bin is actually being recycled. Just putting it in the bin and leaving it to the waste collector is not good enough. You need to ask your mayor, your company that collects the waste, where is your plastic going? Did you know that hundreds of tons of plastics are shipped around the world to countries which do not have the facilities to deal with the waste? You find plastics from all parts of the world being dumped in some countries. And this is causing a lot of problems because these countries cannot handle with those plastics. And as a result, those plastics are being dumped everywhere, including the oceans. So this is the second thing you can do. Ask questions. Ask the guy who picks up your rubbish. Ask the director of the company who's managing your rubbish. Ask the mayor of your city, the head of your municipality, your politician. Where is my plastic going? You want an answer. And I think you will get an answer. Thirdly, use refillable bottles to drink water. And water is, of course, great for you, and it helps the water cycle to go around. And finally, ask your parents, or if you're an adult listening, to donate to one of those initiatives. And let's send out those explorers. Let's send out those brave scientists. Let's send them out and let them find out more about the environment. And you know what will be the result? Hundreds of seabirds will be saved from your armchair. Hundreds of turtles will be saved from your armchair. We also reduce microplastics in our food, in our snacks. And maybe you are a vegetarian, right? There was somebody saying, I'm vegetarian. Did you know that now there's research that is showing that plastics are also entering plants? They're also entering the food that we eat. The plastics are also floating in the air, so we also breathing in microplastics. So finally, the best result you can achieve is to keep my beautiful island clean from your armchair. Thank you so much. Paul, over to you. Your microphone.
Thanks very much, Rolf. Fantastic. That's the really a great one. And we're bursting with questions here, Rolf. You know, my Seychelles wild brother. And before we get started with some of the more technical ones, I've got a lovely one here. My school doesn't recycle. What should I do?
Tell them to start recycling as from tomorrow. Go to the head teacher, say, I want my school to start recycling plastic. You can do it. And this is where we want it to start. It has to start in our schools, in our homes, and in our communities.
Rolf, COVID-19 has brought us, to a dead stop and has given us the opportunity to reset all of our values. And of course, it's the only way forward. It's the only thing we can do. But one of the immediate problems with our response to COVID-19 has been plastic waste. I keep seeing these photographs online of, masks and all the rest of the, plastic, the gloves and the one-use stuff. And it's just all over the place. We don't seem to be geared up for managing this waste from this pandemic. Have you got some suggestions?
Yes. In fact, earlier this week, we had this global seminar to discuss how do we deal with medical waste. Sadly, I must say that because we've been ignoring waste before, now we are overwhelmed with dealing the real waste that we have to deal with. So the opportunity that we have before us now is, once we come out of this, is that we need to prioritize waste as an important political priority, national priority, business priority, community priority for us to deal with it. Because if we get another pandemic, we will not be able to deal with the thing. You know, it's like going to the dentist after your tooth has fallen out. You said, dentist, what can you do now? He said, but the only thing I can do is drill it and put in a new tooth. You know, there's nothing I can do with repairing it, because you have not invested in taking good care of your teeth. So we need to maintain a safe and clean environment, and it costs, yes, but we are human beings. We consume, so we have to pay the cost for polluting our planet.
Fantastic, Rolph. And my final question to you, if I may, is I've worked in the Seychelles many times, and happiest when I'm with you in the Seychelles. Do you feel there's a Seychellois method to looking after nature? And if so, can it be replicated globally?
Yes, and I think that goes back to my first slide, is if you see before you things happening, it's like in a movie, you know, you see when somebody cuts a tree, and then you see the avalanche and the flooding after, and then you see the sea red within the next 2 minutes or 3 minutes. Then you start to understand that when somebody destroys a forest in the middle of the Amazon, it might be a drop in the ocean, but it has its impact on our whole planet. So that is why when people tell me, you know, climate change is not real, this is not happening, there's no patch in the ocean where plastics are opening, I said, look, you don't need to go far. Look at yourself. Look at how much you are consuming. Look at how much electricity you are using. Look at how much plastics you generate when you go shopping, and after you've put everything in the fridge. Look at how much beverages you are drinking. And then multiply this by the 4 or 5 or 7 billion people we're going to have on this planet. And now tell me, can a planet our size sustain this kind of onslaught? And the answer obviously would be no. So if we all start, and this has been my mantra from day one, each individual has to start taking this step, whether it's dealing with plastics, with pollution, with emissions, with climate change, with all the problems that we have, even invasive, you know, even illegal trade in species, you know. Everybody wants to have a nice horn on their wall. I prefer the rhinoceros running around. I prefer the elephant running around. But we don't invest enough in educating our children. That this little fish that they want to put in an aquarium has caused significant damage in the Pacific Island, in an Indian Ocean island, to get this little coral fish to put into an aquarium. This is the kind of sensitization and the kind of awareness that we need to convey to our kids and to the public in general, that everything that we do has an impact on this planet. And we should all take collective responsibility and collective action to bring down this level of impact we have on our planet.
Wow, Rolph, thank you very much. Really wise words from a man currently in Geneva, Switzerland, bringing the freshness and vision of the Seychellois spirit to us today. Thank you very much, Rolph. And
thank you.
Yeah, we'll see you again very soon. Thank you, Rolph.
Cheers, Paul. All right.